Thank you for watching the video. Subscribe. What?
How are you? Well, this is a group that is currently appearing against the regime of the Ayatollahs over there in Iran. What's going on with this individual? With this character, well, they call themselves the Iranian Popular Resistance Front. They have published this video from Sistan and Baluchistan, in which, according to this individual, he promises that they will continue the attacks against that government. The fighters seem to be here. They are equipped with M16A2 and Avtomat Kalashnikova Modernizirovanny rifles. These, according to reports, are American-made, but they're not recent. They're already somewhat old, as you can see. This is what's shown in this message that draws attention today. Well, with this, we begin. What's happening in the world? What's going on with the issue of Iran? There's a message from this general. Let's see if we can show it on the screen. This man, this general, has sent a message in which they are practically ready for conflict, for war. Let's go into the details of what's happening. Thank you for joining us. We're broadcasting live, and a big greeting to the whole community that's watching us. To those who are joining the live stream and to those who are watching us later, thank you very much for being part of this family of this news podcast called Pepe en Vivo. I appreciate your support. Now, your like is really important. Let's get into the details. What's going on with this general? To begin with, who is this military chief and what did he just say? What? Things have been escalating in terms of threats. Basically, we're also going to see what's happening with this earthquake, a strong earthquake over there in Kamchatka, Russia. Let's talk about what's happening around the world. Get ready. Prepare your coffee if you haven't done so, and let's get into the details. A big greeting to the community. How have you been? How's it going? Thank you very much, by the way, to Francisco Arce and Lucia Para. Thank you so much, and also to the father. Thank you so much for that super chat. I really appreciate it, and to the whole community that supports the channel. Honestly, I'm really grateful for it. We're here every day with information, and we're not just, we're not just here for the sake of it. Well, from Monday to Friday, we're including, as you know, we're also including weekends. So at any time, as long as there's information, we're here paying attention to what's happening. Let's get into the details. Let's see what's going on with this military chief, this general, after all, right? The chief of the Iranian General Staff, General Adral Harim Mousavi, warned that any war started by Washington would be a battle that would give them a choice, he says. This message, more so for President Trump, who described the comments from the President of the United States as unbecoming of a president and reckless. This is raising the level of confrontation between both powers. Since Friday, there had been a message from Trump saying that a regime change in Iran would be good. Washington also announced the deployment of an aircraft carrier, the United States ship Gerald Ford, which is the largest aircraft carrier the United States has. They also say it's the most modern, assuring that, well, it will be there soon. In those regions, it will take about 2 weeks. We have to remember that the Abraham Lincoln is already there, and now the Gerald Ford is going, which is bigger and more modern. They've been updating it even more, right? Well, Iran insists that the ball is in the United States court and demands signs of commitment to lift the sanctions. There are two pieces of news, and you'll notice it right now, two very important pieces of news, one heading towards war and the other towards business. It's either business or war. That's Donald Trump's style. That's how it's been shown with Venezuela. Basically, no, it was either conflict or business, and now, well, it's business, right? Apparently, there's a supposed opening from Iran, although this boss clearly didn't get the memo because he's going to stop the war. The current scenario is, well, between diplomacy, if you will, but also between maximum military movements. The President of the United States, besides what he said on Friday, now comes out and says that he already knows where Khamenei is. He implies in this statement that he has information about where Khamenei is. I don't doubt it for a second. I mean, the intelligence agencies at least have a rough idea of where they are. And look, it was proven with the case of Maduro, who they said never slept in the same place. That he didn't stay, that he didn't whatever. But it turned out they knew where he lived, they knew his pet's name, they knew who was taking care of him. Come on, they had all the information. Donald Trump said that if he were Khamenei, Trump says if he were Khamenei, he would be afraid to sleep in the same place for a long time. The president also stated that Washington knows exactly where Khamenei is, hinting that they have superior intelligence. He even hinted that they could reveal the location live, that is, at that moment, just as they could say exactly where he is right now. It's also a psychological game, it's psychological too, right? Because honestly, I don't think the intelligence people like this being said. What happens when this happens, when a president like Trump says this? Well, it might be taken seriously and they might double the security with his daughter Khamenei. Hey, now that they know where they are, let's double up and hide them even more. What I'm getting at is that it's not very good for the intelligence agencies at this point. No, I don't think they liked it very much, but well, it has its psychological side. The White House maintains economic sanctions and active military deterrence measures against all of Iran, mainly focused more on the elite. But also, well, they affect the whole country. No, I mean right now this is a country that's almost entirely sanctioned, right? And there's a shift that really catches my attention, which would be very focused on business matters. I mean, this possibility exists. Look at what's happening with this issue right now. At the same time as we're talking, you can't see it. Let's see if we can put it on the screen. This image that comes up today, an image that they say, let's see if we can zoom in a little. This image is from another oil tanker. There it is. We're seeing the Americans. I'm sure they're reporting. United States forces reportedly seized an oil tanker, which is said to be linked to Iran. This happened in the Indian Ocean. There's the tanker. Look in the background. They seized it after finding the Venezuelan oil cargo that was headed to Southeast Asia. Supposedly, Veronica 3 is also linked to Iran, and well, after finding it carrying Venezuelan oil, it was now heading to Asia, to Southeast Asia. Well, it remains seized. It's the Veronica 3 number 3, and that's good. Also part of what we're seeing. Look at what Marco Rubio is saying now. Let's go with that report. Let's display the image of Marco Rubio. And even though at that moment, well, they were in a meeting about other topics, Marco Rubio made a comment about the issue with Iran. Let's get into the details.
Estamos tratando con clérigos chiitas radicales, ¿de acuerdo? Estamos tratando con personas que toman decisiones políticas y geopolíticas basadas puramente en la teología, y es algo complicado. Quiero decir, nadie ha logrado nunca hacer un acuerdo exitoso con Irán, pero lo vamos a intentar.
Look at what Marco Rubio says, and on this topic I think he's right. I don't know what you think. Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, the person in charge of relations with the world on behalf of the United States, says, remember that we are dealing with radical Shia clerics. We are dealing with people who make geopolitical decisions based on pure theology. No one, he says, has been able to reach a successful agreement with Iran, but we're going to try. This shows us a reality that I think everyone here in the community knows. I mean, at the end of the day, yes, international relations are already extremely complicated. When, on the other side, the decisions being made are based on a version of a religion, a radical version of a religion, what does that say about any religion that becomes radicalized? Well, that's what it is, right? A leadership you can't have a dialogue with. What are you going to negotiate if he's going to base everything on that? Not on his country's prosperity, not on the security of both sides. No, just on the idea that according to you, you're going to be right. Because your beliefs tell you one thing, dictate one thing to you, and based on that, you make decisions about the population and about any other country. This is complicated. It's not very difficult. That's why they say no one has managed to negotiate. In any case, maybe they have parallel paths for certain issues, but they don't negotiate with Russia or with China or with anyone. They negotiate with them. And at that point, I think maybe it's not understood. Many assume they're with the Russians or Chinese just because they're friendly, but that's not true. They're not just being friendly. Because right now their interests aren't clashing, but if for some reason their interests go another way, they won't care. There's no political loyalty, there's no loyalty of any kind, it's just a matter of convenience. An orthodox person, someone with an extreme view of their religion. So, well, for me, I basically rule out that there's any real negotiation, but anything can happen, right? I mean, now we're seeing some movement. Here we put it on the screen, right? Where? From Russia, the Russian Air Force is continuously delivering equipment, and in this case, Mi-28 attack helicopters to Iran. Careful, many times when a country sells weapons, they dilute them. For example, the United States sells you an F-35, but they sell you an F-35 with certain limits, yes. Or, for example, when the United States has sold equipment to Ukraine, certain missiles, they say yes, they sell it to you. But this missile is going to be limited so that it doesn't travel so many kilometers, so the attack doesn't reach Moscow? In case you're wondering, no. So they limit the weapons, right? Well, what's supposedly happening with Russia is that they're not limiting the weapons the Iranians send them, and they send them complete. They're not sending the downgraded versions, they're sending the full versions, the same ones Russia uses, they're giving them to Iran. This shows that right now there's a pretty strong level of trust between both countries. That's, well, interesting to consider. Now there's another version of everything that's happening. It's the business version, like I was saying. Right now there are two versions, the war version and the business version. Well, Iran would be considering opening economic sectors to companies from the United States as part of the upcoming agreement. The Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs stated that Iran's oil and gas fields and mining investments are open or would soon be open to American companies. For Iran, this would be very important because it would bring in business, but also for the United States. At the same time, Iran is announcing that they are considering buying 100 passenger planes from the United States. If Iran does that, Iran would be depending for part of its transportation on American labor and parts. It's a very delicate issue, but it's one where Iran would show trust. Not saying, look, my air transportation will depend on you. So it's a sign of trust, intelligence, strength, the move. I'm not saying no. Honestly, I don't know if it will happen. And another point is that all of this, including mining, gas, oil, etc., amounts to at least an economic activity of $500 billion. It would be a strong activity for both countries. I don't know, Svena there, Angel. Some people might say those are good deals, but it's bad the regime will continue, right? But anyway, that's another version. It's another idea that's circulating right now, the business version. Let's not rule that out, because it's becoming more and more of a possibility. Let's move on to other important matters. Without going too far yet in the Middle East, so we can move on to other reports in a moment, right? Netanyahu lays out Israel's conditions to support a possible nuclear deal between the United States and Iran. So, in the end, there's a point. There's a country that's also very interested in the issue because it's closer than the United States, which is Israel. Obviously not Israel. Besides, sometimes right now it doesn't get along well with Iran. But they're still two Arab countries, even though they have different views of their religion. In the case of Israel, it's a very different country with a different religion. To begin with, and we can see how all of this matters in this story, let's say. Netanyahu is demanding extreme limits on missiles and nuclear enrichment so that they can support this agreement. Between the United States and Iran, the tension is rising again. Because in the end, what you're saying is, well, sit on your hands, Iran. I mean, you won't be able to attack, you won't be able to do anything, at least not to Israel. And that's it. Basically, that's it. I don't see how the Ayatollahs would want to accept something like that, because they have a very expansionist vision, don't they? Netanyahu stated that he presented his position very clearly to President Trump during their meeting this past February 11, a few days ago. Israel demands that Iran limit the range of its ballistic missiles to only 300 kilometers and not missiles that can reach 1,000 or 1,500 kilometers. Because those reach the BIP because they reach directly to the capital of Israel. And it has already been proven, right? I mean, there is that capability to send missiles that far. Currently, the limit that the Iranians have is 2,000 kilometers, enough to reach anywhere in Israel. And that's the part that worries you? Well, obviously, that's what they're demanding. In that sense, let's move on to other matters. Also important. Notice that there's an earthquake happening, or there was an earthquake. Look, it's this one right here. Let's go over to this area of the Pacific where you can see this whole region. There have been earthquakes above 6. There have been several already, right? This time there's an earthquake in Kamchatka, which is this area shown by the United States Geological Survey. Today, it surprises us with a powerful earthquake, or a quake, whatever you want to call it, with a magnitude of 6. Let's go over the details of what is known so far, but the alerts have already been issued. At first, there was talk of a possible tsunami, but that possibility has already been ruled out. The earthquake was recorded off the coast of Ostrov Shaslovsk and Shaslovkotan, which is actually a Russian region of Sakhalin. The authorities are monitoring this seismic activity, but they still maintain a low-risk alert, according to them, even though the earthquake was magnitude 6. It was recorded in the Pacific Ocean, 64 kilometers southwest of Ostrov Island. This is in the Sakhalin Oblast region in Russia. The earthquake is said to have occurred today, February 15, 2026 at 3 o'clock post-meridian. At 58 minutes UTC, which is equivalent to 2:58 anti-meridian local Russian time today, Monday the 10th. Well, for them, it would already be Monday, February 16th, while for us it happened on the 15th. For them, it already happened on the 16th. A little while ago, this already happened. The official time is Monday, February 16th, which means tomorrow for us. That happened in the time zone of that country, of that area. Remember that Russia has a lot of time zones, and that's one of them. Greenwich Mean Time plus 11, Greenwich Mean Time plus 11. If anyone wants to write it down if they're interested. The epicenter occurred or was located in the North Pacific Ocean, near the volcanic island of Zokostan. Within a seismic arc of the Kurils Islands, one of the most active areas on the planet. The depth was 55 kilometers, which is considered an intermediate depth, significantly reducing the surface impact in populated areas. The United States Geological Survey has manually reviewed this information, and at 60 seismic stations they detected the earthquake, which can be confirmed as a 6.0. Other agencies, such as the European Mediterranean Seismological Center (GFSS), or Incorporated Research Institutions for Seismology, also agreed on the magnitude variations. Some reported 6.1, 6.2, some reported 5.9, but the variation was very minimal. On this matter, that's it. The activity is then quite close to all of them, right? The maximum estimated intensity was level 4 according to a light level, let's say, on the Mercalli scale. Which means that there were vibrations but no significant structural damage. That's what is believed. Approximately 230 people so far were able to feel the movement, mainly in towns far from Yukono-de-Sakalasinsk, according to reports. The UECS issued a green alert, indicating that the probability of casualties is low and the probability of significant economic damage is also low. The energy released was 6.3 times 10 to the 13th joules comparable. More or less, to make a calculation of about 15,080 tons of trinitrotoluene. That's like the energy, right? Approximately 0.9 times the energy of an atomic bomb. Almost at the level of a weapon. Of course, this doesn't cause the damage because it's underground despite the movement, and you don't feel it as much because of the depth of 55 kilometers. But still, it's a force nonetheless. Interesting. This area has been recording large earthquakes, even historic ones, like the one that happened in 2006. At that point, there's a record that in 2006, an earthquake of 8.3 occurred in that same area. Imagine an earthquake like that. There's also the potential for a tsunami, but this time, there's no alert. The authorities assure that they are maintaining continuous monitoring, especially because of the proximity of the active volcanic systems in the Kuril chain, although at the moment there are no reports of abnormal volcanic activity. It's an event that is indeed strong, but without a significant impact on populated areas due to its remote location and depth. They say those factors worked in their favor to prevent damage. There is no active tsunami alert at the moment. There is constant monitoring, 24-hour surveillance. Because of its history, it has an extreme record, and honestly, it's a recent one too. The potential is there. It's not just the potential to cause problems, it's there. Obviously not, that's clear. It's a yes, it's a strong seismic zone just like always. But the famous earthquakes that happen all along the Ring of Fire, which is what this is, the Ring of Fire, right? If we look at it from this side, on the map on the right, if all of this is the Ring of Fire, there it covers Chile, Peru, Mexico, California, Alaska, the Kuril Islands, all of this. Japan, Indonesia, not all of this is New Zealand, not even. So, well, that's what has been seen over there. By the way, was there an earthquake today? Since we're on the topic, just so we don't miss it. There were 2 earthquakes that caught my attention, but let's say the strongest one in Latin America today, February 15th, was this one. Look, that one right there. Didn't you see that it lit up? It lit up this blue color. Let's zoom in a little on the map. That was in Peru, right next to Chile, in Peru. Well, as always, in this area there tend to be earthquakes. It's a magnitude 5 earthquake. I know it's not very big or anything, but well, I'm just mentioning it, but the depth is really significant. In fact, this whole area has been very active lately in Chile and Argentina. And Peru, yes, this area, if you notice, they're so close together. It's very active, but with super deep earthquakes. We're talking about 130 kilometers deep. That's a lot of depth. Obviously, that doesn't cause much of a problem. Let's move on to other matters. By the way, have you been posting these videos to see if your politicians notice them, not just throwing around little pieces of paper? Let's see if you remember where you've seen that little airplane symbol. Let's see if you recall. Well, that little airplane is the one typically used by Telegram. Yes, since we're also looking at Russia here, this is a message that's being sent from Russia. Exactly, they're very upset with the regime because they've taken away their Telegram, right? They were very happy with their Telegram. It was their main source of information. It's not just a network for chatting, but they feel safe there, maybe because they think the government itself won't hack them. Well, yes, in fact, they've had Telegram taken away from them, and that's why they use these little airplanes, and that's how they've been protesting, throwing paper planes from buildings, throwing those kinds of little planes. It's to show their discontent. The complaint is that they've restricted freedom of communication through Telegram. And that's where, look, that's where they throw the little planes. That's how they communicate. They have microblogs there with millions of followers. Some of them report on, for example, how the war in Ukraine is going. How are all these problems going, and even the international issues? How is the news? No, because the media there is very, very limited. There's not much variety. And through Telegram, information is shared there. There are people who have their podcasts and their commentary through that network. Let's move on to other key matters. Look at what's happening. Those images are satellite images we're seeing from China. Look, let's go into detail about what's happening in this region of the world, according to new satellite images like the ones we're observing. Some of them are already marked. According to the New York Times, China is accelerating its expansion of nuclear weapons programs. This is in the Zhejiang Valley in Sichuan. New bunkers and fortified walls have suggested the possibility of promoting, or rather testing, high-performance explosive materials. For several months now, there has been the idea that in China a few years ago, a secret exercise was carried out. An atomic weapon was detonated a few years ago recently, secretly and underground. Look here. At this point in China, if we looked at China like this map, in that central point, that's where it would be. And this is where these bunkers would be. According to reports in Pingtong, a safe site, a bunker. Underground plutonium-based nuclear warheads are being produced. With a recently modernized 110-meter chimney and ongoing construction of traditional facilities, a banner with President Xi Jinping visible from space, they say, how? The internal commitment is what Xi Jinping, the president of China, had already warned about. Well, his nuclear program continued the idea, and that's an issue they've been very critical about. Countries that want more control over the nuclear issue claim that Xi Jinping might be planning to have 1,000 atomic weapons before 2030. More or less before 2030, that's the goal. According to estimates from the Pentagon itself, the current nuclear warheads could increase from 600 in 2024 to 1,000 by the year 2030. According to what the Pentagon itself says. And what the New York Times shows is that in that area where they know they have the weapons, they would be expanding. So it's suspected that if there is something, it's not something important in this. Let's move on to other important matters. Notice that at the time this happened in Russia, this is what we're seeing at the moment. It was destroyed, it was made to be destroyed, the ammunition depot itself exploded. And since that event, we've been seeing less and less ammunition capacity from Russia. Russian artillery attacks have been decreasing over the last 10 months. After the accident at the 51st AVA Arsenal Main Directorate of Artillery Missiles, do you remember that massive explosion? It's already been a year since the beginning of last year, right? Where there was an explosion. No one ever found out what happened. Whether it was an incident, they say it was something internal. It was never known if it was sabotage by Ukraine or not. It was handled as something internal. Well, after it exploded, after that massive artillery explosion, they had like other warehouses. But from that point on, there's been a noticeable decrease. When it comes to the attacks, they have little ammunition. It was an event of great impact, significant even for the inhabited areas. The regions remember that kilometers away, windows shattered, and it was a big deal, right? The location, although remote, still has nearby populations. The authorities maintain continuous monitoring, especially because in that whole area, well, a lot of these munitions are made or produced. According to the report, Russia blew up that depot or it exploded by accident, I don't know. Artillery attacks have been decreasing after the 51st Main Directorate of Artillery Missiles reportedly exploded near Moscow in 2000 at the beginning. Well, one of those huge topics of this conflict too. By the way, let's move on to what's happening in other matters. Well, a topic that's not going to end, that still has a long way to go because there's a lot of information missing, which is the Einstein case. Now, the Trump administration sent a letter accusing Green and Macy of being in the Einstein files. I mean, there are Republicans who have been criticizing the Republicans who are not in those files. They have been harshly criticizing Trump for not revealing the information, for wanting to hide it, and so on. Now, Trump wants to turn it on them, saying they're involved too, right? And you know, it's always with the narrative of saying whatever to distract, well, you know, right? Trump's administration sent a letter to Congress detailing redactions and names mentioned in the files. Jeffrey Einstein obviously provoking a bipartisan reaction, the Trump administration sent this official letter to Congress. The Department of Justice reportedly sent a 6-page letter explaining which parts are redacted in the documents. Liberal. The letter was signed by Attorney General Pambondi and Deputy Attorney General Tom Blanche, assuring that all material in the department's possession related to Einstein was disclosed, assuring that the 3 million pages are all the information they have. When the congressmen tell her that's not true, that at least another 3 million documents are missing, and others even mention much higher numbers. Among those mentioned are Representative Marjorie Taylor Wynne, Congresswoman Nancy Moore, and Representative Thomas Macy. On the list that appears of government officials and politically exposed persons, according to them, they don't. On that list, it was a list here. When we read it, we thought it was a meme and we thought it was someone's joke. And it turned out that the list published by the Department of Justice comes out, for example, Elvis, which Presley. What does Elvis Presley do? They all come up. Anything you can think of, any name you want, everything comes up. I mean, Obama's children, Biden's wife, everything. That's how they took the list. Like all the celebrities said, let's put everyone on it. We were doing fine. We said, no, this is a joke, right? And this one, because there are even some people on there whose ages don't even match. Don't you say, wait a minute, this person wasn't even alive, not to think, right? And Elvis Presley shows up, or let's say they release the list. Well, from my point of view, it's 100% to distract, right? While everyone is talking about whether it's Elvis Presley or not, nobody is talking about the people who are actually on the list. Clearly not, but anyway, we have to stay alert about that. It's crazy, honestly. Let's move on to other important topics. Let's go to the comments. It's time. I think it's time now. How have you been? Eliseo, very good. Today was really crazy. Really crazy what happened with Pambondi. I mean, she's 60 years old, honestly. That's really crazy. How does she do it? I mean, in that sense, well, maybe she's a vampire or something like that. I don't know, right? But suddenly it's just crazy now. Greetings, Francisco. How have you been? Very good, he says. He estimates there are more than 12,000 atomic bombs. Would it be enough to generate electricity for years for all of humanity? Greetings, Francisco Arce. How have you been? Very good, he says. A magnitude 6 in Chile is just a somewhat strong tremor. An earthquake is above 7.6, so a 7 magnitude quake or a 7 magnitude earthquake would be at that level. Doesn't it say this? Well, that's how things are, right? Thank you. What else do we have here, says Francisco. Like Blue, how have you been? Thank you very much, says the magical Luna. Good evening, how have you been, says Blue. If you work for Sansonido, if you don't like to keep it simple, you're the one they talk about behind your back, he says. He says, if you want, what are you talking about? Greetings, and what are you talking about? You're very bitter about what happened. Greetings, good evening, Miguel. How's it going, Chibola? It's good to be healthy. Thank you, Estado, says Amanda. Eliseo Business, how are you? Greetings, Business. What's up, Blanca Barcelo? Greetings, Amanda. Who else did I say was nice? It's the day of, by the way, about 27 degrees, all sunny. Let's see how much it is. Let me check how much it is. But I imagine it's about 28 degrees sunny. Tomorrow the same, thanks. 28 degrees, it's spring-like, right? The weather. Super good from Colombia, like Estados. Greetings, Maritza. Things are very good. Eliseo and Nikolai is around. Frango, how have you been? Greetings. It's great to see you here on a Sunday. Honey, thank you. Thank you. From last night to a little while ago. But if that's the case, we're here with pleasure. If we don't see each other tonight, we'll keep talking here about what's happening in the world. A big hug. See you.